let's go ahead and start with some intros, and let's not make these 1 or 2 sentences. Let's make them serious, in-depth intros. That way they know what to ask.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So my name is Peter Holsworth. I started in the cannabis industry with the very first legally taxed and tracked transaction. I built the regulatory software as a CFO, CIO that opened up the the THC market in Washington. BioTrack THC. We built the regulatory system that tracked every gram of cannabis in real time for Washington, Illinois, New Mexico, New York, and Hawaii while I was there in the C-level. We also built the most widely used seed-to-sale inventory management and point-of-sale software used to date globally for the cannabis industry, which now runs 3,100 operations in 15 countries and 31 states. It'll track about $8.5 billion of cannabis this year. I've gone on to do a bunch of different things. I served as director of a Fortune 500 law firm's cannabis practice, where we achieved the first ever new dietary ingredient, generally recognized as safe designations for hemp seed and proteins in food additives. We achieved the first ever cannabinoid-based plant patent in history, the fastest ever in history, and about 180 other cannabinoid-based patents around the plant. Today, I serve as the sales director for Wares Hemp, which is a large B2B wholesale marketplace for cannabinoid purchasing. I am the founder of Fly Soul Shoes, which is a hemp-based hand-woven shoe line to enter in the North American market, which I manufacture with a family in Templeton, Mexico. I am the business director for a functional and psilocybin mushroom brand called Silo Wellness, which will soon release the Marley mushroom line with the Marley family. We have operations in psilocybin and ketamine retreats in Oregon, and retailer in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, serving psilocybin compounds derived from 30 different alkaloid and DNA structures, as well as a retreat in Montego Bay. And then finally, I consult for Backbone Software as a global expansion officer, where we provide extractors a display of all of their SOPs, standard operating procedures, allowing for them to integrate a input material through their processes to a cost of gram manufacturing and align that with a general ledger in a click of the button.
So you don't really know much of anything.
I love this industry.
So pretty much any question regarding anything, it sounds like. That's good.
Well, not anything.
Yeah. Next, let's go down the row.
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Tim Gordon. I've been in the cannabis industry now, pushing 2.5 decades. I have one of the larger CBD companies in the country. It's called Functional Remedies Synchronicity. We supply products to a variety of different retail outlets and practitioners. I also am in part owner of one of the largest marijuana companies in the country in California. It's called Element 7. I advise to different businesses, and I sit on trade organization boards of both the Hemp Industries Association, the U.S. Hemp Growers Association, and I've been an advisor to different state organizations as far as agriculture, as far as production, and the Colorado Department of Health and Environment over the years. I have the luxury of serving this cannabis industry in a variety of different ways. I do hold a variety of patents in the industry. I like to do cool stuff. I do a lot of science and innovation. One of the companies that I'm really excited about, I sit on the board of right now, is called Carbon Chemistry, kind of an innovative company in the extraction and solvent side, providing really cool consumables and marketables. I'm a board member of the Hemp Industry Association, which I'm also very proud of, and the USHGA, like I said. I enjoy the cannabis industry a lot. I'm well suited, well versed, and I hope I can answer all of your questions appropriately. Thanks.
I don't know how the word synchronicity works with Functional Remedies, but I was recently introduced to that brand. I love the website, love the branding. I love how you're targeting specific ailments. That's cool. I like that. Sure.
Thank you.
Keep it on.
Wow, those are tough acts to follow, man. So I don't really do anything. I'm just here to hang out and answer any questions I can answer. My name's Aaron. I'm from California. I've been in the cannabis space for over 40 years, if you count as a teen, growing and sponsoring my surf expeditions. But in 2001, I was in New York on 9/11 and got caught up in it as a first responder. Fast forward 13 years, got stage 4 cancer. Stayed in the cannabis in California. I had my medical card since 2004. Was helping friends with how to get through their chemo and whatnot. And I survived inoperable stage 4 cancer in 2014, and which led me to start a foundation called the Cancer Causes Foundation. And what we do there is we consult a lot of patients who are referred from physicians. And so labeling and packaging is really important. We see a lot of products out there from people that are just buying them off the internet or at a gas station or whatever, thinking that they're going to help. I have over 2,000 patients, youngest 7 with a brain tumor that we've talked to, and oldest 93 with Parkinson's. So from there, what I did is I started a company called Big Wave, and I consult small startups and bootstrap type companies, more grassroots, unlike these gentlemen who are really on the scaled side of things. That's who I am. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Thorburn. I'm an attorney here in Denver, Colorado. I've been involved in cannabis now for about a decade on this, and where I fall in is in tax litigation, and that's where my sweet spot has been. Prior to coming into cannabis law, I was litigating mainly real estate and construction law cases there. 2009, the real estate market kind of took a dive, and I was sitting here trying to reinvent myself. I was offered a case, which is now known as Feinberg, the Feinberg case, Feinberg versus Commissioner, to test Section 280E. The first thing I noticed about it is that there was no accounting solution to 280E. It was strictly a question of powers. Can Congress, can IRS do what they're trying to do? And that's where I started my journey on this. The Feinberg case wound up a few years later in front of now Justice Neil Gorsuch. And I was able to argue part of the Feinberg case to the justice. An interesting piece of that is that for a half an hour, I'm sitting here talking with now a Supreme Court justice on cannabis, knowing and finding out just where he sits on the cannabis issues. So I'm one of the few people that know at least how one Supreme Court justice looks at the cannabis industry within that. It definitely snowballed there, kind of more of an avalanche on that. One of the cases that we did was Alpenglow Botanicals versus Commissioner. You may not know that case, but at least in cannabis, the question of cost of goods sold in taxation, because that's the only thing that you can take, is now, because of Alpenglow, a constitutional right. It's not something legislative grace of Congress. It's now a constitutional right. We actually have some of those issues up in the Supreme Court right now, with one case standing akimbo versus United States, looking like the justices may take it on some of the central issues that we're dealing with. So what does that have to do with CBD? Well, given that it's also a cannabis plant, the federal government looks at everything that we're dealing with in the federal-state relationship. You can look at it in 2 words with the federal government: cannabis, bad. And if you take everything that's going on there, and this goes back 25 years ago, back to the Clinton administration, everything that's going on the federal level you can put it on those 2 words, and everything flows from that. So with that, I'll let you take it from there.
Great. So I'm the moderator, Josh Whitaker. I used to have a marketing agency. We've launched about 45 CBD brands, and now I'm VP of Sales and Marketing for a full-scale manufacturer for a lot of D8. Used to be mostly CBD. Now it's mostly D8. So anyway, we've got marketing, we've got legal, we've got taxes. A little bit about tax. Did you mention? Yeah, I think you heard the word tax. We've got branding and labels. We've got marijuana, and we've even got some psilocybin. So this is industry Q&A. So who's got some questions? Raise your hand.
I
Good question.
where hemp is legal, now you've taken it to a product that's possibly a controlled substance under DEA. Could that have the potential to mess up safety?
So just to clarify, so Safe Banking Act has passed a couple of times, right? Just never makes it all the way through. Four now.
Yes.
Okay, so is D8 a threat to this coming? Who wants to take?
Well, you have to look at why we're having a problem with banking to begin with. The reason why we're having banking problems in cannabis is because, well, cannabis bad. It's illegal. And if you look at all the federal regulations regarding banking, they're saying that if you are trafficking in an illegal substance, you are doing money laundering. And if you're doing money laundering, you are violating the Banking Act, and then you're criminally responsible for all that. So getting into the other forms of cannabis that are going on, if it's Schedule 1, the Safe Banking Act has to do with giving a safe harbor to banking to cannabis, and it really is mainly for the Schedule 1 cannabis. I mean, hemp and all that, falls into that category just because it's the male plant. It's not technically illegal at this point, but it shouldn't hold up the legislation from that standpoint, being that these are additional illegal substances, because that's what they are addressing in there. Now, is it going to make it through the Senate? It's very questionable. And what's interesting about that, in talking with our various lawmakers up on the Hill, if the Democrats and Republicans could get together, there is enough bipartisan support to pass all these things. But last year, the Republicans wanted to pass it in the Senate, and the Democrats said, we're not going to give you this win in an election year. So now the Democrats are in control, and the Republicans are saying, we're not going to give you that win on it. So it's really goofy. If we can get them both together in one spot, we'll probably get it passed. But I don't think that that's going to be an impediment to the SAFE Act.
Does anybody else want to go? You want to go first? Go ahead. I have a completely different view. I've been part of the lobby days since the NCIA initiated them, and this is a farce. Until we have a homogenized testing system which levels the playing field to allow for Oregon cannabis to cross borders into California and vice versa into Colorado, this is just a farce. The Safe Banking Act is just preliminary bull BS to make us think that we're actually having a combative force. The Senate, which is Republican controlled, is ultimately the end. But even Maxine Waters will tell you that there's no even appetite for them to even pass this until we have a homogenized level playing field for Bank of America and Pfizer and all these other corporations to come and take over our industry. So if D8, my opinion is, if D8 does screw it up, good. Good. The longer we have this industry to us to build our footprint, before you have to compete with somebody who gets a loan from Bank of America or Pfizer coming in to buy his footprint, the better.
You want to add something?
Well, sure. I'd love to add something on that respect. Pretty hot topic, this whole DA stuff and how things are working right now. I'll tell you this, you guys, I didn't say it in my introduction, but my company was the first to be on the board with the Consumer Health Products Association, Functional Remedies. We were the very first cannabis company with them, with like Johnson & Johnson and P&G and big guys who essentially really influenced the FDA and subsequently the DEA. 2 years ago, I was asked to be the cannabis advisor for the Council of Responsible Nutrition. Same thing, get to sit on the board with CEOs from these companies. And I can tell you in 100% confidence that these companies have a keen eye on all of these constituents of cannabis, whether they're derived from cannabis or not. Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer, all of these guys are going to be delivering over-the-counter products in our country, and they're delivering over-the-counter cannabis products across the globe right now, Delta 8 included. And that's the reality. I want to tell you one other thing too, and this is crazy. I do a lot of training, and I do some training for the Customs and Border Patrol out of Colorado, out of DIA, because believe it or not, we export and import the most cannabis products in the United States, believe it or not, right out of DIA here. So you guys, about 2 months ago, I was asked to come down and look at a shipment that was heading out of the country, and it was 4 barrels on a pallet of Delta 8, and they just needed help, I guess, understanding the legality of it, and if it was illegal, because they had the whole crew down there. So they called little Tim here, who's the HIA board member and a cannabis guy, and who they can trust, who really doesn't bullshit people. And they said, Tim, is this legal? And I said, well, you guys, let's go to the law. Let's go to what the Controlled Substances Act, and let's go to what the Farm Bill says. And so we did that, and we looked at it, and we said, wow, the Farm Bill made Delta 9 legal too at 0.3%. We haven't got to the concentration and the regulatory process of post-concentration. But guess what we did? We put the stamp of approval, and that product went on a plane and went to another country. So here's the reality. Delta 8's not going to go away. It may be sucked up into a specific swim lane, like OTC for a variety of other drugs like Sudafed and stuff like that. That's the likelihood. It's not going to go away. So that's my 2 cents.
What do you think the regulatory pathway for Delta 8 in the next 6 to 12 months looks like? Because obviously we're having psychoactive effects. And, I don't know if everybody's familiar, but recently in Orlando, there was a conference where I think 17, correct me if I'm wrong, 17 people rushed to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because there was a bad batch made. So there, what, in your opinion, what do you think the regulatory aspects that control or license Delta 8 production from that look like in the future?
Yeah. So this is already being talked about, how this looks about with the FDA working group, who I've done a little bit of work with up until the COVID crisis stuck, and they kind of pumped the brakes. But you guys, again, this is I'm a cannabis advocate, hardcore, you guys, hardcore. But I tell you, some of these laws are going to be driven from the top, from those guys, from the big sharks that I sit with on these boards. And they're going to say, hey, FDA, this is going to be Delta 8, and it's going to be an OTC drug, and we're going to corner the market with it. Yeah. So I hate to say it, but that's the reality of our country in these kind of environments. And they make, like I said, make no mistake about it, they want a piece of the action. But I see Delta 8 being sucked into the swim lane and regulated as an over-the-counter drug ingredient.
So you produce Delta 8, correct? Your company? No, you utilize Delta 8? Is that why you had? That's a question, no?
No, I'm doing extraction with this tree.
Sorry, that's a question. It's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Liz.
Yeah, excellent.
I can add that on the, irrespective of the Safe Banking Act, our payment processor, which I refer, I don't even know, at least 3 to 5 times a week. I have a CBD, a Facebook group for CBD business owners. Okay, so it's the whole group. There's no spamming. There's nobody in there saying, hey, I've got Delta 8 gummies. It's all about, hey, can anybody introduce me to a payment processor, right? Well, I can tell you this, the largest, from what I believe, because they have hundreds of clients, tons of my clients, they are no longer onboarding Delta 8 clients. If it's a CBD brand and they have Delta 8 products, they're not onboarding them. The bank will not take them currently. So it's a
There
tricky
is a
one.
gray area around the psychoactivity.
Right.
When you're looking at a psychoactive, which impairs you in any way, shape, or form, the FDA is going to regulate that. And the fallacy here is that people think that the FDA hasn't already given you the pathway to obtain big box retail exposure, which it has. I mean, there's only 4 really ways. A new drug application, which is $1 billion product. That's GW Pharmaceutical, 10-year process. Unless you got $1 billion in your back pocket, not me. A new plant drug application, which now opened from this derivative. A new dietary ingredient, which is the best way to get your product into a big box retailer. And it's only about a year-long period of time, maybe 150 grand of legal work. But this at least will give you the ability to say this product does what it says. It removes inflammation. It removes your headache or whatever it be, and that's what you'll find the pathway. And then it generally recognizes safe designation.
And I can just say one more thing about, just since we're talking about Delta 8, Bob Hoban, who is the nation's either largest or second largest law firm in cannabis, he's spent the last couple of years flying around to different countries talking about the hemp laws. His piece isn't whether it's legal or illegal, it's about is somebody going to do something like make a 250 milligram gummy that puts a kid in the hospital that the DEA then steps in, or somebody steps in and does an emergency ban? Like that's the fear. I don't think anybody believes it's going to be outlawed in the next several months, but somebody could come down and say, you know what? We don't know. Let's make it all illegal right now. That's a big fear.
Yeah, and if
right
we
now.
have more incidents like took place in Orlando, that's almost a guarantee. You know?
All right. Anything else about this stuff? Yeah.
With what you're saying, one of the questions is that right now, I question how much the federal government is going to come in and do the things like what you're talking about, because it's really questionable. And one of the cases that we have on the Supreme Court, we're begging this question: is it illegal? I know everybody says Controlled Substances Act. Of course it's illegal. But there is a real question out there right now that the courts are battling with. Is the government going to come in and do this, given the states and the rights that they have right now? At least at the moment, I don't think they're going to. They're not going to dare poke this issue at the moment. Maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years from now. I don't think right now that they're going to push it.
All right. Any more questions? I mean, there better be. We have a lot more time left.
Thanks, man. Hey, guys. I'm curious more about psychedelic drugs, and I know you're working with psilocybin. I mean, we're having such a tough time getting cannabis legalized nationally. How are we going to convince people that it's okay to do, not to do, but I mean, with the stigma around psychedelics, how does that look as far as legalization, or at least from a medical license? Like, what are your thoughts about that? Just kind of a broad statement.
I mean, would anybody else like to go? Well, let's look at the general market first off. If you look at a psychedelic application like mushrooms or psilocybin, the average consumer is going to consume maybe less than $100 a year of psilocybin. So we're not looking at a recreational explosion or consumption level of the amount that you take cannabis, right? And thus the distribution model will be vastly different. There's legislation in various geographies, like the state of New York right now, where 2 senators have legislation to utilize psilocybin in therapeutic settings with licensed professionals. And I really believe that's kind of the first step to getting this in a national paradigm shift, if you will. Cannabis is much different. I can smoke a lot of cannabis. I'm probably going to wind up on my couch with a pizza. I can take way too many mushrooms and have a vastly different experience. So we have to be mature about the way that we regulate distribution, dispensation, cultivation, and the licensing of this going forward. The decriminalization of these entities or these compounds is not the authorization or licensing to cultivate or distribute. Recently, you saw the Side Door, which had applied for a church status in Oakland. They were raided, and as they were distributing psilocybin. I think we're at the beginning steps of a grand awakening, really, by incorporating, mycelium's precursor to psilocybin into our bodies, understanding the benefits in our homeostasis of not just a cannabinoid-based lifestyle, but a homeopathic and a plant-based lifestyle, and a fungi-based lifestyle incorporated alongside that. So for our efforts, we offer psychedelic and psilocybin experiences in geographies which are legal. Oregon and Jamaica in their current juncture right now. However, we promote and we're launching a full family of MCT-based flavored tinctures which improve various aspects of your homeostasis, which are non-psilocybin containing, which I think are priming the pump. Do we have a road in front of us? Absolutely. I think we have maybe 3 to 5 years before we're actually seeing any type of distribution model being formalized in the United States. But once again, the United States is losing this battle, just like they lost cannabis. I mean, what is a country with 40 million people above us doing, dictating public markets and how the companies are valued? Canada won, right? They made all those billionaires and it popped and dropped. Let's not make the same mistake here and get ahead of it. So I advocate for people, if you believe in the therapeutic values of psilocybin, talk to your local legislators, please.
Anyone else have something to add on that?
It's a political issue. It really is. And the question is, just like cannabis had and still has a stigma to it. When you bring out the education, and I'll go back and a political movement who is which really demonstrates how it can be done is the gay rights movement. If you go back 50 years ago, there's huge stigma against homosexuality. Now there's a huge stigma to even say anything against homosexuality at this point. What happened? It was education and legislation happening over a long period of time. So the answer to your question is exactly that.
Well said, Jim.
Go ahead.
So, Peter, let me ask you this. I mean, cannabis has been prohibited for many, many years, right? I mean, psilocybin and psychoactives have been studied at great length scientifically for mental health. Where we had a prohibition against cannabis, don't you think that's going to open the doorway quicker for things like psilocybin and MDMA and those types of things to be used as microdosing for mental health? Because there have been so many studies where we were prohibited from studying cannabis.
From your sweet, beautiful lips to God's ears, my God, I'll get you up on the stage right now. Yes. The scientific research has been, you take psilocybin, it actually improves your neuroplasticity. It gives your ability to your neurons to connect in a better and more receptive and reconstructive way, healing trauma, healing things that have taken place that have prevented those neurons from firing correctly in the first place. So, yes, the research of psilocybin is well beyond what we actually have here available in the United States, outside of like Israel and what they've done for cannabinoids. But I believe we're getting kind of a piggyback. The fight, cannabis, let's give it up for him. Let's give it up for cannabis. What a beautiful, beautiful plant to get us as a foundation to put our feet on and start bringing new solutions. Let's stop this synthetic petroleum-based solutions that cause us other symptoms we have to treat with another colored pill. What bullshit. I'm over it. So, sorry, don't get me started. That's it.
I just want to chime in from a grassroots perspective. So if you look at it also, I agree with you in that it's political, in that, the first patent that was issued was applied for in 1998. 2 years after California went legal in 96, patent issued in 2003. It's not a matter of, I don't believe, of it being legal and the benefits of it. We all know there's the benefits of it. All the politicians know it. I think it comes down to who controls it, who makes the money on it. And that's where the roadblocks come in. Anyway, just my perspective.
Yeah, from a political stance, I think it's more of a political stance from back in the day, right? I think more of it's a fear thing right now, and exactly what you just said from a money perspective, right? I mean, too many people don't know anything. I mean, even CBD. I just mentioned this in my talk a little while ago. The latest study that I read, 58% of people do not even know what CBD is. That's in America. I mean, it's just insane that so many people still don't even know what it is. A much larger number think it's just like pot. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts. And too many people are fearful of CBD. Even more are fearful of psilocybin.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to add one more thing. So I do a lot of, when we talk about CBD, it's really a misnomer, because when people are looking from wellness perspective, and I deal with a lot of patients in a lot of ranges, is that they say CBD. They go buy a product, it's CBD only, broad spectrum or whatever, and they're having neuropathic symptoms, and they get no benefit. I think it helped. I don't know. I said, well, if that's your answer, then it definitely didn't help. But then they don't know where to get the right information because they're not educated in the beginning. And it kind of starts with all of us being responsible, doing proper labeling, offering education. But again, even from someone who's dealing with products, it's about making money. It's not about really the healing and the wellness of people. And I think that's where a lot of this also stems from, when we talk about in those terms, using that word CBD so loosely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know, I think the first foray into a psilocybin revolution, if you will, is understanding the benefits of functional mushrooms first. You know, a lion's mane, a cordyceps, a reishi, you know, these that have a dramatic effect on your homeostasis when used properly over time, and allow your body to work in more conjunction with itself. So psilocybin, I think, you know, I don't know who's taking it in the room. You don't have to raise your hand, but everybody understands the great benefit that you have introspectively on understanding of your connection. And I think that is best approached in first entry into our society under a therapeutic setting.
Psilocybin's definitely not going to be put back in a box. They're just the studies that I have read are just unbelievable on certain things like PTSD. I mean, dramatic effects. People with the worst cases of PTSD are literally cured within a month and a half. I can't wait to see what happens with that. We're so early with psilocybin. All right, who's next? Give me some questions.
You better give us a question, because if not, you're going to hear a bunch of jokes from the panel.
Jokes are always welcome. Those are good ones. As the industry matures and more money comes flooding in and regulation eases up and all that sort of things happen, what do you think the best suited businesses will be to survive consolidation? How do you think the value chain is going to break out between cultivation, processing, retail? In other words, I advise some small companies that are looking to see how they position themselves better to grow through this. And the question is, should they put more money into brick and retail stores where they make a pretty good profit? Will that have a moat around it from big
Can I ask you a
consolidation?
question just to specify?
Or will it be more around brands and brand consolidation?
Are you talking CBD or are you talking THC?
Pardon me, CBD, because
CBD.
THC, I assume, is just going to be so regulated for so long that it's going to be a while before there's state consolidation, multi-state consolidation in CBD, in THC. But CBD is going to open up. And I guess if you were building a business right now and you had $100 to spend, would you put it into cultivation? Would you put it into retail? Would you put it into, try to build your own brands when it seems like a lot of people there's a lot of brands around. So I just would like the panel's thoughts on where the smart money lies as consolidation comes. Did I state that clearly?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, thanks.
You know, to be successful in the CBD space going forward, you have to be incredibly innovative and you have to be incredibly deliberate with your intent. The days of the green rush, quite frankly, are over, and margins are becoming incredibly tight right now in the CBD industry, and it's tough. Now, it's tough for some of the reasons I told you guys about before. Once regulations are in place, you can be assured that shelf space at Walmart and CVS is going to be taken by Merck, Pfizer, and all those other guys. I want you to understand one other thing too, that as an ingredient, where Kraft gets ingredients, where Heinz gets ingredients, is from AFS, which is American Food Services. Do you know what they offer right now? Organic CBD. So when you ask a question like that, you know, it's tough for me, who's been in the industry a long time, to say your money's better spent elsewhere. But it may be, because quite honestly, unless you're incredibly innovative, incredibly deliberate, the CBD industry is a race to the bottom on the cultivation side, through processing, all the way through your brand. It's competitive now. But you watch when Procter & Gamble comes in and takes shelf space, and watch how right now there's no market leader. Charlotte's Web, 12 to 13% of a market, that's not a leader. So you watch when that spread comes in with the top 7, who really, you know, dangle the marionette of the dietary supplement world. So CBD is going to be regulated as an ingredient, and it's going to be tough on the agricultural side, because there's already scaled cannabinoid farming that's done like row cropping now. The days of the Christmas tree, you know, high CBD cultivars, unless you're with a brand and that brand's going to kill it, you're not going to make it. Your ROI is going to be, your cogs are just going to kill you. They're going to kill you. So it's tough. I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards and give you my card and you know, get a little further in detail. But high level, you have to be innovative and you have to be very deliberate when entering the CBD space, because it is going to be very taxing and you have to be in it for the long haul. Not only that, you need coin. You can't come into this industry for $5 million anymore, folks. You just can't. It's not going to work for you.
So I'm gonna second to what he just said, and give you a piece of advice on a global scale. In 2019, when I served as the director of cannabis client services for Zuber Lawler, one of our clients was a combination of the largest agricultural producer in Mexico and the largest generic drug manufacturer in Mexico, called Bella Green Ventures. They're one of the 7 hemp licensees in Mexico. They have an existing 20 square kilometer environmentally controlled greenhouse. Let that sink in for just 2 seconds. 20 square kilometers. They have furthermore produced 370 generic drugs, distributing them in 42 nations right now. So as soon as the DEA allows the importation of cannabinoid refined materials from Mexico or Colombia, it's over here. Over. There's no possible way anywhere in this country will ever compete with the labor rates of production and the ability to refine and extract under GMP circumstances anywhere in combination with Colombia or Mexico. I can hire a PhD lab tech from Colombia for $35,000 a year. So the only way in that I see if you're going to rush into this market with brand is understanding the consumer is obtaining the regulatory stances and the certifications from the FDA that'll allow you to participate with the big boys if you had the money to do it. Other than that, the cannabinoid market, everybody's racing to the ingestible cannabinoid market. If you hold up your fist, this is the size of the THC Delta 9 market. If you look at the size of the panel that we're on right now, that's the size of the ingestible CBD market. If you look at this room, that's the size of the industrial hemp application market. So start thinking ahead of not where the puck is right now, but where the puck's going. How can I build homes with hempcrete? How can I make shoes with hemp fiber? How can I change the paradigm away that we use synthetic plastics for plastic bags instead of hemp? That's the solution. That's the next step. That's the market that's about to explode, opposed to you chasing the dog's tail.
And I think your question was CBD, right, rather than like hemp fabric on that. The FDA is making a play to regulate it, as you probably are aware. If they're successful in it, there's going to be 2 ways that CBD is marketed. It's either going to be a prescription only, or it's going to be over the counter. What you would have to do is get into your crystal ball, look at the pharmaceutical industry there, and see how the various games are played within big pharma. That's the way that CBD is going to be distributed, assuming that the FDA gets its way.
Yeah. Let me just add on to that real quick. So yeah, hemp is the only plant that can feed us, clothe us, house us, transport us, and heal us. So when you talk about CBD and coming into the market, for people that are looking at it, what I also see are so many white label companies popping up and offering products. And people are coming into it again. They're in for the short game. They're in to get some money quick and get out. And it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of them are pushing products that aren't effective, and then they, whatever sell the business don't, they fold up, whatever. It just creates a lot of bad influence on other people who might be wanting to try it. So from a low dollar standpoint, if you have people that you're talking to that are looking for an entry point, I would say that that's where they want to come in and enter the market, because not everybody can come in with $5 million or more to raise to get into the space. But they also need to be looking at the integrity of what they're getting into. And again, that's just perpetuating really bad stigma, in my opinion, for people who are just coming in to look to just market a product. Because like you said, the green rush is really over. But people still see that. People still perpetuate that myth that this is the green rush.
So I disagree a little bit there with the green rush being over, because as you said, with this stage being the CBD market, if this stage were the CBD market in the world, I would say that we have this entire building, right? I mean, we are so early in other countries. Right? These other countries are where we were 10 years ago, right? So we could literally pick up and drop off what we're doing over there.
And Europe just opened up, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So Europe just opened up legislation allowing for CBD to be considered not a narcotic.
yeah,
So the market is wide open if you get into European markets.
Let me,
And CBD will be incorporated in every normalized paradigm. I mean, we're in a habit of ketchup, just like he says. I mean, Pfizer is planning on putting in every single thing, because it is a better solution. But, you got to think about easier barriers to entry, right? I think your point was absolutely the nail on the head there as far as innovation.
definitely
let me also
innovation.
just clarify as well. So when I say green rush, I'm old school. I come from the time when, a good pound of Sensimilia would yield you $5,000, right?
Oh,
Good old
So-
days.
Those were the days. That's the green rush days. And then came along the time, California, we were producing, most of the product that's pushed out in the country, right? But the thing of it is that with the fact that when it became legal, we could come out of the shadows. So the green rush where I came from was the whole thing where it was illegal and starting to become legal and everybody was kind of making money. Investors wouldn't even touch it. If you touched the plant, they wouldn't touch you. That was 5 years ago right here in Denver when I came to a conference. And now look at it. So there is opportunity there, but you got to be well put together. You got to have a well thought plan. You got to be really innovative in coming out with something and create a niche, because you can't compete with the Procter and Gamble's and all these other guys or these gentlemen down at the end of the table here. I'll never be in a market with where they're at, but there's other niche markets to carve out that are profitable.
Yeah, and let me rephrase that. The green rush in America is over, I agree. But we have, 40, 50, 60, 70 other green rushes that are about to happen.
Yeah.
And one more thing I might add, just because we're talking about putting money somewhere, manufacturing. Like before, as someone who launches CBD brands, I have had a bad experience with almost every single manufacturer, and it's my job. The people pay me a lot of money to build their company, to build their CBD brands. So it's on me to find the manufacturers to manufacture these brands. And every single one, the one I'm with now, CBD Universe, is literally the only one that I haven't had a bad experience with. And we've seen manufacturers just go down because of these things. It's crazy. So if one did have a lot of money and you could specialize in one particular thing, well, I don't care if it's, gummies or Listerine strips or gum or whatever it is, if you're a good business and you're a good manufacturer and you go through all of the testing, because we need to be CGMP, we need to be ISO certified, we need all of these things, right? That's going to be mandatory when regulations do come down. But I think manufacturing would be.
I have another hint for you about a place to put money in this industry that's going to move up, is the certification of EU or CGMP facilities for manufacturing purposes. That demand will go skyrocketing through the roof, especially after we get more clarification from the FDA. Furthermore, API, active pharmaceutical ingredient manufactured cannabinoid profiles, will certainly go through the roof as far as demand is concerned when pharmaceuticals in this country can utilize it. And then, ancillary service providers to those will certainly, work in that manner as well. So.
All right. I think it's ready to move on. Next question.
Hello?
Yes.
All right. So, common theme, the last panel as well also talked about big money entering the space. I wanted to touch on that with the knowledge that companies like Nestle and Spirit and all these other companies are coming into the space. What aspect of whether it be hemp or cannabis verticals, whether it be R&D, whether it be industrial or chemical, what part of those verticals are best positioned to take advantage of this big money coming in?
So you're thinking ancillary companies?
It could be like, are cultivators gonna be getting some of that big money? as Peter's point is, probably not due to importation.
Well, if you look at like Coca-Cola or Nestle, which is one of our clients, they have their infrastructure set up. They own massive yardage in Colombia. They, the difference between the shortest and longest day in Colombia is only 41 minutes. That means they're getting 6 cycles and they're getting it for pennies on the dollar. So that's why we don't grow fresh cut flowers, sugarcane, or even vegetables in this country any longer, Those companies already have that infrastructure. Where I see an opportunity to participate with them is international customs logistics, the ability to transport or secure logistical cross customs and be a specialist in it. That is going to be a large scale, ever growing business that has the ability to specialize in niche, in the ability to transfer cannabinoids of various degrees and various concentrations across sovereign borders. That's where I participate with them. But as far as extraction, cultivation, they control, companies like that have such a brand recognition because they control the inputs. They know what water, soil, cultivation techniques, all the way to the fact that they can control a consistent consumer experience. If I have a Coca-Cola here in Denver or Tokyo, despite a linguistic difference, I'm going to have the know what that Coca-Cola is going to taste like, right? I'll have the same consistent consumer experience. So they don't take risk throughout their life cycle. They go vertical, right? It's like when McDonald's owns all of the potatoes. Nobody else gets those potatoes for McDonald's fries. You feel me? Move the potatoes.
All right, next question. We have 10 minutes left.
Since we're kind of on the topic of, finance and these large players coming in, what about, VC and private equity groups? We had BlackRock getting involved, we had Tiger Global, a lot of big wins in 2019. For sure that's going to grow both in the cannabis as well as like the CBD space. To me, I don't know, my opinion is that's almost a bigger risk than these large companies coming on board right now. But I was wondering what you guys think about kind of the future with VC and what's going to happen if all of these smaller organizations kind of turn into a huge VC-backed like kind of powerhouse in the industry.
I think you bring up a great question there, Nicole, and I think that's kind of already happening. We're seeing cannabis SPACs, we're seeing the mergers and acquisitions that are typical in industry, where like you usually have a group of top dogs and ancillary organizations that make up the rest of the market share. So it's happening. You see Tilray and Apriya, you see a lot of, like I said, the multiple SPACs that are coming into the space and changing the game. Venture capitalist time is right now is the next 36 months to get into the space and take their opportunities and combine and merge and stuff like that. But once we have the regulatory framework in place, once we have decriminalization in place, the venture capitalist groups will be selling off to those bigger, larger conglomerates. And like I said, it's already been happening. You're either getting ready for an IPO or you're getting ready for a large-scale acquisition.
I think that the topic that your question touches on the most potently is the most valuable thing in life that I learned through this business, and I think I can speak with anybody. It's choosing the people you work with, knowing them. You can go into the foxhole, and I know that guy's going to grab a gun and he's going to fight to the death with me. And if that guy's not going to do it, get the hell out of my foxhole. And so I think your point is that VCs are scumbags, most of them. Most of them are great guys. Maybe they go home and have great kids and they raise beautiful offspring. Most of them are scumbags, I know, that I've met, and they chop up companies, especially that's what their job. They're vulture funds. So, unless you're getting into something that you need vulture money, there's a lot of other opportunities out there now. I think Jim speaks to the point. There's a lot of SPACs, there's a lot of investment banks that will come on. There's even private angel funds, and there's groups like, several investor groups that you can go to. But I think, you're going to be needing to be wary of anybody that finances your company. Have a good attorney that you bring in-house. Give your attorney a little piece of your company to have them fight on behalf because they own the company. That is a easy way to save money and get better legal advice.
You're seeing money coming in from like Canada into the U.S. companies, and that type of thing is happening. You're talking about the groups. If you're positioning, what you've got to figure out, just like any business, this investment group is coming in. Figure out where your market is. Is this a market that is going to work? And the big players are eating up the little players right now, and it is consolidating within that. How can you get in where you can get eaten up? I mean, that bottom line is that's where it's going to be on those.
Okay, we have time for one more question. And I'm saying that because I think there's probably only going to be one more. So, one more. Anybody else? We have 8 minutes. Yes.
So, this is what I'd like to hear from you guys, from each of you. If you could go back 5, 10 years ago, what advice would you give to yourselves now? Or, yeah, what would you give to yourselves then if you could go back in time and tell yourselves what to do 10 years ago?
What would we do 10 years ago?
What was the
5 years ago, 30 years ago? You pick the time frame. I'm asking, like, if you were to kind of be in this market at the beginning where you started, what
knowing
advice
what
would
we
you
know
give?
now?
What's that?
Is it knowing what we know now? What would?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of things that come to mind. There's a lot of things that come to mind, Liz. I don't know exactly what I would change right now because I love the evolution of the cannabis space. And we talk about Delta 8 and everything. It's going to continue. We're always ahead of the game. We've always had to kick the door in. You guys remember when 2014, when we did the Farm Bill and people were like, oh, hemp. I mean, we literally blew the world open with CBD. They were like, what the fuck? What's CBD? And no one was expecting this. And it's because we've had to over the years. We've had to innovate. When I was growing cannabis illegally in Ohio in cornfields, I had to innovate every year to make sure my ass didn't get caught. When I started the very first dispensary in Colorado back in 2007, it was up in Fort Collins, I had to innovate every single day in order to be ahead of the game. I had to be the industry guy at times to be ahead of the game. And I think what we're gonna see is that continued evolution. So I really wouldn't go back and change anything. I would just encourage the forward evolution and innovation of cannabis so we can continue our journey together. It's tough to say, what would you do? What would you change? There's a gazillion things on the regulatory side, of course, everybody would change. But in a personal business journey, I wouldn't change a thing. This has been absolutely an education for the last 20 plus years that it's true to my heart. So that's just me.
I would say from my perspective is that knowing what I know now and go back 10 years before it really got the hotspot and became legal and all that, I would have positioned myself then knowing it was going to become legal in that time frame and would have better got me across that hurdle much quicker. I mean, but anything else, like he says, is that going through the evolution and the change, I mean, things were changing on a dime. It was like really hard to stay up. I mean, we were looking at places like Colorado, what they were doing in labeling when they first went rec. And other people were just like, throw a label on it. But yeah, I mean, I think that really kind of taught me a lot of patience and just understanding, because you've got to be flexible. I mean, this is not an industry that is for the faint of heart, for sure.
You guys, I have a Timism, and I say this in all my companies, but cannabis industry, you have to be semper gumby, right? Semper gumby is rigid flexibility. You have to have a plan. But in the cannabis space, at 10 o'clock, your plan is going to have to change at 10:01, and you have to be able to shift and flex and be successful. Semper gumby, rigid flexibility, part of cannabis game.
One of the best things that, and this, of course, this is looking back with hindsight on this. The people who did the best within this were the really good business people who had the foresight, had all the ingenuity to be able to put together a good, solid business. But the ones that seem to have done the best, at least within our community, are the ones that decided to really fight 280E, not just roll over to the IRS and give it. What's happened over the last 10 years with 280E is that it went from a death knell to the ones who rolled over to one that it's doable now, not all that great, but doable. And the ones who really, really fought ended up getting into settlements or other things with the IRS where they ended up using that money for a period of years that they would have otherwise paid to the IRS and really built their businesses there. And it was a really big investment edge to them. So, but that's looking in hindsight. Now, could I have seen that 10 years ago? No. But it seems like those are the ones who really won.
Hold on, Peter. I feel like yours is going to be good. So I'm going to have you go last. I'll just speak real quick. Coming from a marketing background, I would own the internet regarding all things marijuana. I would blog. I would have an educational portal for businesses. I would have an educational portal for consumers. I would have you name it, products, manufacturing. I would own Google with regards to if anybody searches anything. I hope that's not what you're about to say.
No.
Okay, good. So if you search for anything around marijuana, I would come up. One of my properties would come up, and I would make money off of you somehow. That is what I would do. Okay, so now we'll finish with something.
That's good. That's a good one. Mine comes from a completely different standpoint. It has really nothing to do with business. I studied quantum physics as a side hobby and passion. And in 2014, there was a double split theory conducted, which proved that an atom will react differently when a consciousness is looking at that atom's behavior and will find a finite point in existence, opposed to when the consciousness is not. So what that proved simultaneously, there's infinitesimal universes operating around us all at the same time. What that gives you the self-confidence to know is that if it were to be any other way, where I drop this and it falls some other way, it already is. So relax. You're fucking perfect in every moment. Because if it were to be any other way, you already exist, whether you're wearing a white shirt, or I'm a black man, or we're not even here. So, love the common man without expectation of return, and life turns into abundance.
Told you it was going to be good. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.